welcome to the Daily Grind, episode 7. My name's Kelly. I'm super pumped to be recording today with another special guest. I'm just going to get right into it. He's a fellow left handed tennis player, private coach enthusiast, owner of 2 businesses, lives and works in the Chicago area, and overall great person to have. Welcome, Chris Clark. Woo!
Hello, hello, hello. What's up, KJ?
Yeah, welcome, Chris. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Did you see the U.S. Open? Did you catch all of that?
Oh my gosh, U.S. Open, that was so crazy. As a tennis fan, player, enthusiast, whatever you want to label me as, that was pretty wild. This year, I would say it was a pretty memorable year too. A lot of, I think right off the bat, like a lot of upsets, starting in the first week and continuing in the second week. What do you think? Did you get a chance to watch?
I'm going to go a step further and say this was probably one of the best U.S. Opens that
Mm-hmm.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say so because, it was one of those tournaments that you couldn't predict.
Mm-hmm.
The top seeds were going out early. And it's just good to see other people besides the big names always winning. I think that's what's going to help grow the sport. I think that's what makes it more fun to watch, especially on the women's side. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
every match, it was like, who do you think's going to win? I have no idea, especially like when Taylor Townsend beat Simona Halep. That was a big one
Yeah.
that I would have never predicted. I mean, Coco Gruff, the emergence of the young
Mm-hmm.
teams is great to see, right? They're really sparking excitement and a lot of enthusiasm around the sport in general. So I will say I actually enjoy watching the women's more than the men's because
Mm-hmm.
the men's is still you still have the big three and they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna win up into a point, right? So it's just I just feel like they're on another planet playing those three guys, and then there's everybody else, and then there's my boy Nick Kyrgios, who
Mm-hmm.
I honestly felt could win the U.S. Open. He was my pick to win the U.S. Open, but
Yeah.
I just feel like he'll never be what he can until he can get his head right. So that's just my quick
Mm-hmm.
overview of what happened in the tournament. But I mean, I think the future of tennis is bright, and it's
Mm-hmm.
finally good to see because we've kind of had just the same old story for the last 3 to 5 years. So it's from my perspective, it's very good to see just new blood, new excitement, new people coming to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, helps people who want more tennis lessons, which is where I come in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for the U.S. Open, Chris, do you think? I feel like this year it definitely promoted the sport a lot, coming just not from a U.S. perspective, but globally too. With the young players that you mentioned, there's a lot of like stuff on site people can participate in, or fans they can just come and watch and interact with the pro players. Though actually the week before they now made it like a third week basically of like fans can come in for free onto the Billie Jean King tennis center and walk around the grounds, participate, hit in with players. I don't know. I think they've done a lot of big improvements over the years to the U.S. Open. You've been there before. What do you think, Chris? Like, what's like the best things to do when you're there, and what like coming from a coaching perspective or even a player perspective too? Like, what do you think's like the hot spots to check out?
Yeah, absolutely. So personally, I like going like the first couple of days of the main draw, like that
Mhm.
Monday or Tuesday,
Mhm.
or that Tuesday or Wednesday, and or going for the qualifying. I mean, earlier in the tournament, it's just so many people and players around. You get a chance to see everybody. People are a little bit more relaxed, especially as the qualifying is going on for the players that are
Mhm.
already in the main draw. So there's just this energy and buzz around the Billie Jean King Center that is really one that is very hard to describe unless you've been there. I definitely say it's one of those events. If you're a tennis fan or not, I
Mhm.
think you would have a good time because it's one of the only events in tennis where you can boo players, you can cheer players, you
Yeah.
can you can have a lot of fun, right? All the other majors are pretty standard. You have to act a certain way, be a certain way, but I feel like the U.S. Open is where you can really be yourself, be you, and just go and have a good time, and whatever having a good time means to you, you can do exactly that, and it's just special. New York's known as a city that never sleeps,
Mhm.
so from my perspective, it's just the town has a buzz, the tournament has a buzz. Obviously, you got to check out the Wilson store,
Yeah.
and all the other stores that are there
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're super cool as well. But
Mhm.
also seeing the players out. in New York or leaving the hotel,
Yeah.
as we did last year, KJ. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just super fun to see people and say hi and they say hi back and you wish them luck and you go on and you go your way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't able to get a chance to go on the grounds this year. I was just kind of more in Manhattan for US tennis USTA meetings, but I was watching at some of the local places downtown, and they had US Open streaming on every single TV basically. And then yeah, with the warm ups getting close to the players, I was following Nick Kyrgios as well. I thought he was gonna go a little bit further in the tournament. But it just like it brings out the personality in all the players. He was warming up with like a Lakers jersey. I saw one of the days. And then two, just bringing out other sports. They had different people, celebrities in the stands, as well as even other athletes in other sports. There's a couple of Yankee guys that were watching some of the matches on in the Arthur Ashe Stadium. And then also there was, I believe Kobe Bryant was on court just hitting for a little bit and talking about his story. He actually wrote a tennis book recently, so that was kind of interesting. I think this year was definitely a collaboration of other sports helping promote tennis. I think.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing you got to remember, and I always tell this to people, is like there's a lot of culture behind tennis, right? So it's like how do you bridge the gap between tennis and culture? Culture meaning like how do you bring like a Kobe Bryant or a Dirk Nowitzki, guys who really like tennis,
Mhm.
into the sport because that's going to bring other people who like Kobe, who like Dirk, who like
Mhm.
Michael Jordan, Joe Dumars, all these old NBA guys. They like those guys and they'll bring them into the sport, right? And
Mhm.
as it goes back to Nick Kyrgios warming up with the Lakers jersey or the Boston Celtics
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
jersey, like in my opinion, and I'm gonna go off the wall and say this,
Sure.
I honestly think that he is the most electric player on tour right now.
Mhm.
I think he's more electric than Monfils. I think he's more electric than the big three for a couple of reasons. One, you just
Mhm.
never know what you're gonna get, and for to me, honestly, that's what makes it worth watching. Is that you never know what he's gonna do, what he's gonna say, or how he's gonna act. So it's kind of
Mhm.
fun, and I also think like he's good for the next generation because while he does do things that may offend, maybe my parents,
Mhm.
he doesn't. He resonates real well with the kids today, right? And
Mhm.
they look up to him. He's like one of the kids. So I honestly think he's really good for the game. I think he'd
Mhm.
be even better for the game if he could take that next step in his career and tighten it up and be a little more serious. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think he's great for the game. I think him again, Coco Gruff,
Mhm. Yep.
all these players that are coming is going
Sure.
to be like the next wave of big players, But from, a USA tennis perspective, I don't know. I mean, honestly, on the men's side, we're pretty rough. It's
Mhm.
pretty rough right now. Our best player is John Isner. So, um, not saying he isn't a great player, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
the
It's
future doesn't look too bright.
Yeah, the men's side we're still kind of building. I think at this point for the U.S. Women's side we got a stronger base, and not just like one individual person, but multiple younger players up and coming that could see potential down the road. And then also too, finally you touched on it earlier. U.S. Open, the atmosphere is so insane that even some of the tour players I was watching the press conferences after their matches, and even in the men's final too, Medvedev mentioned about the whole atmosphere, crowd getting into it, and just I think that definitely has an influence, positive and sometimes negative too. I would say more overall positive because it's just a lot of cheering, and that's I think a lot of players, not just in tennis, feed off of just the energy about the crowds and the fans around them. That was interesting to see this year too. I think that definitely played a role. There wasn't anything too much crazy. I think Monfils, you mentioned his name, brought up his, I think it was the quarterfinal match he was in against Denis Shapovalov.
Yes.
Yeah, that was so crazy.
I think it
Um,
was the round of 16. I was
or
highly
yeah.
upset that he lost in the quarterfinal,
Mhm.
to be honest. I think, like, again, that was a guy who I think could have definitely got to the semis. And he kind of like, he goes through these like ups and downs during a match where he looks real tired and all of a
Mhm.
sudden he gets energy and then he kind of takes a set off and then plays and then takes another set off. So I just thought it was a missed opportunity. But again, it was
Mhm.
good to see a new guy who I'm sure many people hadn't paid much attention to before the tournament, make the semis and actually, play fairly well for two sets
Mm-hmm.
during the semis.
Yeah, he had a lot of trick shots too. Some like 360 whatever spin overhead smashes, just like ridiculous. He very much an endurance player. He was a good one to watch. Feel free, listeners, to search on YouTube or however to like stream. Just probably search like top 10 U.S. Open 2019 uh, plays or rallies, and he'd probably be in a lot of them. And, or just there's like, too many out there to be honest. Would you think, Chris, of the final? So Nadal taking his number 19th Grand Slam on the men's
Yeah,
side.
no, I mean, personally, I was actually, I gave a tennis lesson, an hour ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just telling the guy, I was like, listen, is it time we start talking about Nadal as the greatest player of all time, right? Because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not 100%, but I think Roger has 20, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Nadal has 19. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as great as Roger is, I mean, Nadal's only one behind him, right? And I think Nadal still has a few years left to play. So it's kind of like you look at the big three and you're like, who's going to finish with the most Grand Slams? And I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think Novak has a chance. I think Federer is
Yeah.
kind of, has another year or two left on tour at most, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as long as those guys can stay healthy, it's gonna be interesting to see. But I think the final was great, and I think it really speaks to your podcast, the Daily Grind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I saw Nadal, like, he looked like he was gonna go away, and give a lot of credit to Medvedev for hanging in there and actually
Mm-hmm.
taking it to a fifth. But it's just like Nadal is just he's just built different, right? He's just a guy who, like, literally, you're gonna have to carry him off the court before he loses. And I think every young tennis player, every pro player, they can take something from Nadal, and just the fact that he will never give up. And it's just it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing to see a guy play that hard, that long, and just give it all he has. And I think a lot of it comes from not only the belief in himself, but the belief in his training, the belief in his team, and
Mm-hmm.
it all translates over into the court. But for me, especially, I think, like, you can learn a lot of that and apply it to your daily life. Is,
Mm-hmm.
you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in what you're doing, and when everything's clicking, you're going to be successful. And I think that's what you watch and that's what you witness too. And I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think Medvedev has made huge strides this year, and I think he's going to be the future of tennis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once the big three are gone, I mean, he's definitely going to be right up there. And I was telling my wife the other night, I remember watching him,
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago when we were traveling through Italy, and I was like, man, this guy's going to be something special. And you fast forward 2 years, and he's in the final of the U.S. Open. So he's just a guy who's not afraid of anybody, and he just goes out there and grinds. So um, honestly, it's good to see, and I look at those things
Yep.
like, what can we learn from those matches? And I think they tell a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he put himself on the radar now, so people can possibly look for him, or when they mention his name, they know, oh, he's the guy that he was the runner up at the tournament. Well, how about on the women's side, Chris? Did you think of the final, Serena and Bianca, first Canadian woman to ever win the U.S. Open or Grand Slam in general? I think.
Man, KJ, let me tell you something. Listen, let me tell you something. So, like, I honestly, I want Serena to win the 24th. I
Yeah.
mean, she was playing so well. Just, I mean, she had that hiccup. I think it was the second or third round against Katie. Was it Katie McNally?
Yeah. Yep.
But who also played well and is an up and
Mhm.
coming great American. But like, she just had been playing like flawless. And honestly, I think there's just like that mental block. I think it's a lot of pressure on Serena, to, especially in the finals, to be able to win those tournaments. And I think it all comes
Mhm.
crashing down on her at once. I also
Mhm.
think, like, when you think about match play, Serena doesn't really play that much outside of the majors. So
Mhm.
if you think about, like, yeah, she hasn't won a tournament in 2 years, but I mean, she's gotten to four major finals, right?
Yeah.
In the last, not even 2 years, in the last year and a half. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I think the recipe for Serena will be, she has to, I mean, and I honestly mean that she has to play more tournaments outside of the Grand Slam, and she has
Mhm.
to win those tournaments and get a understanding and get that feeling again of what it feels like to win in a major, or not in a
Mhm.
major, in a tournament outside of a major. And then once she does that, I think she'll be ready to win her 24th and 25th and 26th. I think she's far from done. She's
Yeah.
fit, she's fast, and she's still there now. For the young Canadian.
Mhm.
Funny story. Back last December, I was
Okay.
doing a lot of player testing at
Mhm.
IMG.
Mhm.
Um, I just saw Kelly for the new Trinity Ball that launched, right?
Yeah.
And I was down at IMG, and one of the players I tested was Bianca, right?
Mhm.
And I was with her coach, and we were sitting there talking, and it's just funny how 9 months can make such a big difference. I mean, she was 178 in the world at
Mhm.
the time I was doing player testing with her, and now she's the U.S. Open champion. So she was a hard worker. She was a grinder back then. Um, I would have never guessed she would win the U.S. Open, but
Mhm.
she's a super hard worker, super good fighter, right? I mean, she's also
Yeah.
the future of tennis. I think the one thing I'm really curious to see when it comes to her is if she is going to be able to maintain that level, because now she kind of has it, right? So
Mhm.
will she be able to answer the call and answer the call in terms of the pressure that's going to come with it? And I
Yep.
think you've seen some up and downs from Osaka this year, just in terms of
Yeah.
like dealing with the pressure and all the emotions that come with it. So now at 19, and it's hard to remember like these they're kids, right? They're young. So
Mhm.
um, can they really answer the call and have a and back up the good play, right? Can they have another great year? And I think that's going to be the thing I'm looking forward to next year. I mean, if you ask me right now,
Mhm.
I'm a betting man, and I would say I think it's going
Sure.
to be tough for Bianca to back it up.
Mhm.
I think it's going to be a difficult year next year. That's
Mhm.
my bet, right? But
You think?
if she keeps the
Mhm.
right people around her, keeps training hard, I think she'll be in good shape.
Yeah, biggest question on the women's side is how if they can sustain their level after winning a Grand Slam or a big name tournament. Yeah, Serena, I'm really hoping for her to tie and then overall beat the record. It's just a matter of time, and like you mentioned before, she needs a little bit more. I mean, she has tons of experience, but she needs to be more. She needs to be playing more tournaments to just get familiar or back in her groove and winning these things. Bianca, on the other hand, I think she's in a better position than a few years ago. Sloane Stevens, remember when she won the U.S. Open? I feel like she can rebound better than
Yeah,
Sloane.
I mean,
Um,
honestly, I gotta stop you, KJ,
yeah.
because I
Uh oh.
mean, Sloan. I mean, okay, so Sloane Stevens is now coached again by Kamal Murray, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know, man. I don't think she just doesn't have that mentality in my mind that she takes
Mhm.
tennis too seriously, right?
Yeah.
Like she's all about the glitter and the glam, but
Mhm.
she doesn't go out and just give it like everything she has.
Yeah,
And
I
I
feel like she's
mean,
not grinding. Yeah.
honestly, well, let me take that back. She plays hard,
Mhm.
but she doesn't grind. She doesn't practice hard. She doesn't do
Mhm.
those little things hard. And I mean,
Mhm.
the proof's in the pudding, right? If a player is winning, why do you think Nadal's so successful? Because he puts in the work. He
Mhm.
does what he needs to do on and off the court. Like many of
Mhm.
these players just don't do that today. Like Serena, why do you think she can continuously get to Grand Slam finals and she turns 38 next week? It's
Mhm.
because they continue to grind on and off the court. Whereas some of these younger, I call them young Thundercats,
I like it.
these young kids these
Mhm.
days, like they just don't have that grind, right? It's
Mhm.
more of like a social thing that they've been blessed with a, a large amount of talent, but
Mhm.
they just, in my opinion, I don't want to say they take it for granted, but maybe they're just not all about winning the Grand Slam,
Yeah.
and it's hard too, right? Like
Yeah.
you lose fourth round of U.S. Open, I mean, I think what are you make $280,000, so you're 19 years old, you're 20, 21, and someone hands you a check for 280K. It's like I'm doing all right,
Yeah,
you know
not
what I
too
mean?
bad.
So
Yeah.
not too bad. I'll hit a couple tennis balls when I feel like it. So
Yeah, no, it's totally. I think it's also a focus. So yeah, Bianca. I know she was like from last year, even maybe when you saw her on court for play testing, or she was coming back from an injury, from last year within like a year or so. So it's definitely cool to see players, not just her, but there's I could name like a handful out there that are coming back from injury and making the progress, and then seeing the improvement and seeing that hard work actually pay off. So actually maybe transitioning to more of a coaching side, Chris, can you give us like maybe a background or even your personal experience too, coming back from injury, how to get back in the groove, things like that?
yeah, so it's been about 4 years now. Actually, to this weekend, I tore my patella tendon and dislocated my kneecap. I had a really nasty freak
Mhm.
accident on the tennis court. I was literally going up for a ball
Mhm.
and just came down and basically my kneecap just exploded. So
Mm-hmm.
um, it's pretty disgusting. But I mean, anyway, I mean, the best thing or the most important thing when coming back from injury is like just to take it day by day. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't rush it, right? Because what you don't want to happen is you rush through PT, you rush through training, and then all of a sudden you have another injury, right? Or the same thing happens to you on the opposite leg, right? Because you wanted to get back so quickly, and now you overcompensated for um, just the
Yeah.
the extra practice that you had to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the most important thing is just like with the game being as physical as it is now, it's just super important that as a player, as a coach, like you got to make sure everybody's taking care of themselves, right? Um, because if not, your career won't last long. And then it's also like
Mm-hmm.
the style of play you play, right? Like there's a big difference between the style that Roger plays and Rafa plays, right? Or Novak plays and Nick Kyrgios plays. Like Nick Kyrgios can probably play, into his late 30s, whereas Nadal is it's going to be interesting to see how healthy he can stay over the next couple of years, just because like. I mean, the guy plays so physical. He doesn't give up on any ball, but on the
Mm-hmm.
back end, his body really pays for that.
Yeah, that's a good point you mentioned. You have to like kind of I guess uh like lay out like your schedule or make sure if you have like really high intensity days to also have like recovery days or not as much of intensity, or do you what would you recommend like as a tennis player to do cross training, be in the gym more? Like what's like a what would be like a typical if someone was trying to get into tennis or to start playing at the high level coming right out of college, I guess, or to maintain a somewhat high level like in league play? What would you recommend?
Yeah, good question, KJ. So it's one of those things like I'm gonna say like for someone coming out of college, right? Let's say you
Mm-hmm.
play college tennis and you still want to compete. The
Mm-hmm.
one thing I want to mention is just don't neglect the little things like stretching. Like you need to keep that same routine going. Stretching is super important. Warming up before you play, like as soon as I stopped playing college tennis, there wasn't a 30-minute stretching warm up anymore. It was like, hey, let's get on the court and hit some balls. And honestly, I
Yeah.
think my body like paid for that, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why I got injured. I stopped doing the little things, and now I'm back to doing it. One, because I like to teach, and two,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to prolong my body and how long I can play the sport. But when it comes to how you train, I mean, it's all seasonal, right? So I feel like in the
Mm-hmm.
off season, when you're not necessarily playing as many tournaments, you should definitely do more conditioning, more lifting, try to build up your strength, try to build up your speed, try to build up your endurance. And then as the season goes along and you're actually, you're playing tournaments, you're playing matches, you need to work more on your on court play. So
Mm-hmm.
do more drilling on the court, what did you learn from the match you won? What did you learn from the match you lost? Where are your weaknesses, right? And I mean, it's hard to see, once you get to like obviously a pro level, if players have weaknesses, like everybody can crack the ball, everybody can move very, very well, but it's like those small, minute things that like is going to make the difference between winning and losing. It's like, do you lose
Mm-hmm.
focus, during practice? Does that translate over into a match? Is it 4-all and you double fault at 30, 40 and all of a sudden you lose the set, right? Like things just happen so quickly and it's usually, one or 2 points that really make the big difference in who wins the set, who wins the match, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about doing those little things, and the better you get at doing those little things, those are the things that are going to make the biggest impact on your game. But I mean, to me, like from playing college tennis, I
Mm-hmm.
literally learned so much in tennis that I can apply to life, and I just think the same thing applies. You got to work hard no matter what you do. There are going to
Mm-hmm.
be setbacks, there's going to be hard times, there's going to be injuries, but if you keep doing the right thing and believe in what you do, I really believe that you're going to come out on top, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
What?
yeah,
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
What do you think are like key takeaways from just watching the U.S. Open or any of these other big tournaments that recently happened, so like the Western Southern Open, even the ATP Challengers that are going on currently right now? What are like key takeaways that you like see in these matches that you can share with your players or people that you teach?
Yeah, the one thing like I'm preaching a lot about is just adding variety in your game,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's not about hitting the ball hard. One, the stroke starts from the ground up, so you know, how well are you going to move your feet? Let's work on consistency, and then with consistency, let's work on your variety. How
Mm-hmm.
does your slice look? How does your tops and backhand look? How does your ability look to gain court position? The one thing, like, I was watching and I talk a lot about, I was watching Daniel Schwartzman play
Mm-hmm.
Nadal, and Schwartzman's about a
Yep.
good 4'7"
Yeah.
on a good day. I mean, honestly, I think he's like 5'4",
Yeah, I
but
think he's like my height.
yeah, I mean, for a man, I mean, that could be your husband, right? Holler. Just kidding.
Can't wear heels then? That's a bummer. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass.
No, but I was watching him. I was
He's
watching
very
him play,
talented
and
though. Hmm.
yeah, and he obviously Nadal was hitting balls that are high to him, and he was just taking them off the rise. He was taking them early, right? And he was really gaining court position. And I thought, here's a guy who's basically 5'4", and his
Hmm.
ability to move into the court, take balls early, is the reason he is in this match. And I was just like, we can all learn something from watching him play. Is like, it's all about gaining court position, and whoever can win the court position battle,
Hmm.
in my mind, has the best chance to win the net. Now, if you're winning the court position battle and you're still making a lot of unforced errors, then it doesn't, what I'm saying? It doesn't really matter. You're going to lose the match. But I think that's the right way to look at the game, and that's the right way the game should be played, in my opinion.
Yeah, just like setting yourself up to hit the shots that you want to hit and hit to your strengths too. Like utilize what you're strong at, what you've practiced, what you're confident in practicing, and just convert that in your match play. Basically, I guess. Let's say if you're going into like a match or women's or men's. So if it's like you won the first set, then you lost the second, and then you're coming in a third set or a third set tiebreak. What are ways to, like, I guess, Chris, listeners could motivate themselves to get that grind going for the final set or the final tiebreak, like to get back the swing? Do you have any advice you'd recommend for people? Because I know a lot of times it's now with the fast play coming there, you've even seen in the U.S. Open, other Grand Slams earlier this year, there's a lot of five sets or tie breaks within a set.
Yeah. So, a couple things.
Sure.
One, I think when you lose a set, or when it's one set all, you just need to mentally, reset, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't dwell on what's happened in the past. Like, everything's recorded nowadays, so you can always go back and watch, like, I shouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
missed that ball at 4 all or this and that. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's really time for you to buckle down and take the match, right? So I think always this is what I did, and this is what I recommend to players is like, you lose a set, sit down, take a deep breath, reset, and then go out and really go after those first couple of points. Like, if it's a tiebreaker, go after those first couple of points in the tiebreaker, make a lot of
Mm-hmm.
balls, really get your feet going. If it's the first game of a third set, like, make sure your feet are going. But more importantly, if you're serving, make sure you take it point by point and hold your serve, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to lose the set and then get down an early break, because momentum in tennis changes like at the blink of an eye. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
we're playing, Kelly, and 1 minute
Yeah.
you have the momentum, and then all of a sudden, like, you won the second set, but then I break you to start the third. Now that
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter anymore. Now I have the upper hand. The momentum's totally shifted. So, it's how quickly can you forget about the bad things that happen. But that's also, like, again, that's where I like to reference tennis and life, because it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. It's like, how quickly can you forget about those missteps, or those times that you've fallen down in life, and
Mm-hmm.
get back up and keep going, right? And the quicker you're able to do that, or the faster you're able to do that, the more likely you're going to be able to see success, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is perfect. Thanks a lot, Chris, for all the valuable advice to our listeners out there. Actually, transitioning to off court activities and stuff. You touched on a little. We talked about it a little bit before. You're an entrepreneur and just kind of in that startup phase, Chris. You want to like touch on like how to get motivation through that grind, how to handle stress, things of that.
Yeah, so like the startup life is kind of new to me, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just something I decided over the summer that I was going to embark on. So, a buddy of mine and myself, it was actually my best man in my wedding. We just got the idea. He said, "Hey, I'm going to purchase a t-shirt company website." I said, "All right, that's great." So,
Mm-hmm.
let's partner. And so we partnered on it, and we kind of came up with this slogan, like, it's a site where we produce shirts that are like, be you, right? And we live in
Mm-hmm.
a world that consistently tells you that you should be everything else but yourself, and we want to preach like, be yourself. Like, and if someone doesn't accept you, so be it. But as long as you're true to yourself, like everything's gonna be all right. And I mean, I think even myself at some point in
Mhm.
time, like you want to fit in and you want to be able to do other things. But
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day, like I like to practice what I preach, and that is be you. So we make tons of different shirts, and um, we've been doing a lot of marketing for it. So
Mhm.
it's something fun that, we can partner on, and it's been going pretty well. And then the other thing
Mhm.
is just like,
Mhm.
I started this, traveling tennis business. Essentially, it's almost like lessons on demand. So
Mhm.
if someone anywhere in the U.S. essentially needs a lesson, they can contact me, and I'll either get there myself or I'll find someone locally to give you a lesson for a fee. So I've been doing that for, really, I've been teaching
Mhm.
tennis, since the age of
Yeah.
13, but
Mhm.
I've really been embarking on it pretty hard this summer, and I've had some success. So now I'm trying to figure out how to scale up and do some different things with that. But I
Mhm.
mean, it's been a lot of fun, and just
Mhm.
being my own boss, is
Mhm.
is is different, but it's something that, I take pride in, and
Mhm.
it's been really good for me.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm glad that you're doing well out there. Yeah, rewarding to be your boss. Also, some challenges as a startup or just a new business right off the bat. Did you have a background, I guess, going into college, or did you to learn in starting a business? Did you take classes? Did you go to workshops or conferences? Did you talk to other people? How'd you How'd you, I guess, turn that idea into a business, so to say?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it has to do with the people I hang around, right? So
Mhm.
I believe that you're the average of the five people you spend most your time around, whether that's talking, interacting. Like, I really believe, like, if five of my closest friends were billionaires, then I would probably also be that way as well, right? Just
Mhm.
because you pick up those little snippets. So I have a couple buddies who have started different types of businesses. A close friend of mine who I went to high school with actually, has a clothing company as well. So,
Mhm.
I've learned the ropes and some of those things, through him. And then just in terms of marketing,
Mhm.
Facebook is a super powerful tool, right? Like,
Mhm. Yep.
I could be talking to my wife and Google tennis shoes, and then the next thing she goes on her Instagram and she gets the ad for the same tennis shoes that I just looked at on my phone, right? So
Yeah.
really learning how to conquer Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and reach the right consumer, is something that I've learned through my corporate days, whether it was at, Gatorade, Wilson, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but now I'm just trying to figure out how to scale it, and obviously scale the business up so we can continue to grow. I mean, that's the hope, right?
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, you want to keep continually grow and sustain that growth. Um yeah, for a while continuously, basically. I guess like backpedal, Chris, you mentioned you started playing tennis. Did you start playing tennis at 13, you said, or teaching tennis? Or
So I gave my first tennis lesson at the age of 13.
wow.
I'll never forget it. My lesson rate at 13 was $10 an hour.
Mhm.
Um, but it was, I mean, it's one of those things, like, I always take a break from teaching, but it's
Mhm.
like it always follows you. And, I
Mhm.
encourage all of your listeners, Kelly, to
Mhm.
do not only what they're passionate about, but really double down and do what you're good at. And it
Mhm.
could be that can mean many different things. Like, some people are meant to be CEOs, and that's what they're going to do, right? Some
Mhm.
people have other types of talents, but from my perspective, it's about really doubling down on what you're good at. And I've always been good at teaching tennis.
Mhm.
I've always, in my opinion, felt very, confident that I understood the game very well.
Mhm.
um, so I just like sharing that knowledge with people, and that doesn't mean I'm not gonna,
Mhm.
you know leave the entrepreneur life, but I think it's not necessarily being an entrepreneur, it's about being an entrepreneur, right? And
Mhm.
actually doing and executing on what you say you're going to do, right? So if you say you're going to start a business, just don't talk about it, find a way to execute it. And I mean, with the internet, with people in your network, there's tons of people who are trying to do the same thing. So get out and
Mhm.
have conversations and network, and, you'll be able to do that. But yeah, no, I started teaching tennis at 13, and,
Yeah, yeah.
really do so, have done so on and off since I can
Mhm.
remember. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then Chris just basically that's why I invited him, listeners, onto our podcast. No doubt, Chris is like one of the only people I know has a great amount of enthusiasm, motivation, and determination to accomplish big and bigger goals throughout his life, and continually does, not just in his tennis business, coaching, and his t-shirt business. Just like, uh, Chris is definitely good guy to reach out to with questions. We'll do I always do on every episode. We'll tag him in our credits and everything, but we're still as we're going through our episode, we're still talking about small businesses, other things. What's up and coming, Chris? I guess on your daily grind. What's maybe later this week and the coming weeks? What's on your radar?
Absolutely. So I'm working on building a tennis website. So I
Mm-hmm.
have a website, for my current business, but I'm working on a different way to scale the business,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be a little more work. So I'm working with a business partner to scale a website that will essentially allow me to connect more coaches with consumers who are looking for tennis lessons. So I've been spending quite a bit of time working on that. The hope is to launch that December 1st of this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that platform could be super cool. And I think, just given my knowledge of the space, I think it's going to be a good business to pursue. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be one of those things where you launch and, next year you're a billionaire, right? Or a millionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be one of those things I'll be able to scale, each and every year and grow it over time for a sustainable business. So that's kind of on my daily grind. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously staying healthy, if you're
Mm-hmm.
teaching tennis or
Yeah.
working, no matter what you do, self-care is the best thing. And honestly, I think mental health is going to
Mm-hmm.
be a hot topic, especially with, social media these days, right? I can see what
Mm-hmm.
anybody's doing and they can see what I'm doing. So,
Yeah.
just making sure that you take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I'll be taking care of myself.
Yeah, that's good. Always put yeah, you got to be healthy in order to help others basically. It's like when they say on the when you're on the when you're on flight before takeoff, when the oxygen mask comes down, you put it over yourself first and then over the person next to you.
I love the analogy. I wouldn't have used it, but yeah, I got you. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true though. Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta. I mean, you gotta at some
Mhm.
point, right? It's hard, right?
Mhm.
You gotta find the balance
Yeah.
between helping out other
Mhm.
people and helping yourself. But in order for you to be the best person you can be to others, you have to be the best person you can to yourself.
I definitely agree. Chris, do you have any You're definitely one of those world travelers that I know. Do you have any upcoming travels down the road this year, or?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. Nothing major. In
Mm-hmm.
November, I'm going to Brussels in
Oh,
Luxembourg.
oh wow.
So I'm gonna venture over there for a little bit and hang out, do some sightseeing, and just kind of unwind. But yeah, that's the big thing. And then of course some other little trips, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest one I have
Yeah.
coming up. So I'm excited about that. And um, I
That's
want
really
to get over to the Australian Open in the next couple of years. So
yeah.
I'm plotting my way to do so to visit down under and headbutt a kangaroo or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk to Nick Kyrgios. Maybe stay at his pad out there or something. Who
No,
knows?
you'd
You
be
never.
surprised.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
You know,
Right?
yeah, you never know. You
You
keep me
never know.
guessing. No, Australian Open is definitely on my list too. I want to eventually go to one of the goals of mine is to go to all the Grand Slams. So, was able to go to Roland Garros this year. So, next year I'm shooting for Wimbledon, and then Aussie Open is gonna be farther down the road for me. Just trying to plan things out. Otherwise, on my daily my daily grind, what's going on? So I'm still in my gladiator tennis league. So I have an upcoming match later this week. Kind of laying low this weekend. Next week, I'm gonna be traveling out to the Pacific Northwest, going to Seattle and Portland. So that should be fun. And then also too, actually, since we're recording it today, I decided I'm gonna be doing a marathon later in December. So I finally chose where I'm gonna be running and everything. So stay tuned on. I'll probably be doing a lot of races throughout now until later this year to train for it. But like you mentioned before, you gotta take care of yourself first. So staying healthy, staying hydrated, making the right choices, and if you have a high intensity day or workout, you gotta have some time to rest, recover, or just do other cross training so you don't get injury is definitely a key thing to avoid, and just how to treat your body and stay focused. Basically, I think.
100%. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you. Whether you're, a CEO or you're a professional tennis player, beginner tennis player, like again, taking care of yourself, I think is the most important thing, and honestly, just really planning for 3 to 5 years out, right? A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times people say live in the moment, but if you're doing things in the moment that's going to impact your future in 3 to 5 years, I think you have to really be careful of that, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
plan for your future, and how do you see yourself in 3 to 5 and 10 years? Because it's funny, when I was in college, I started college, crazy, believe it or not, like 15 years ago, like
Mm-hmm.
last week, it was 15 years ago that I started college. And when I started college, like 32, like I am now, like
Mm-hmm.
seemed ancient, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it seemed so far away. So
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
thinking to myself, like, while I'm 32 now and 45 seems far away, it's really not far away, right? And I'll be
Mm-hmm.
45, before I know it. So I need to ensure and make the right decisions now, so
Mm-hmm.
that when I'm 45, things can run like a well-oiled machine. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe I can.
Mm-hmm. I believe
And I
you
think
can
that
too. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Kaylee.
Yeah.
AJ.
Oh man, yeah, Chris, listeners, I've known Chris for a couple years now, and definitely super energized, super enthusiastic, and definitely a great person to have on our show. Chris, do you want to leave our listeners with like a word of the day, something that fits well with our episode today, or?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is, just remember, setbacks is a setup for a comeback. Like in life, you have a lot of setbacks. Things
Mm-hmm.
don't go right, they don't go like they should. But just remember, a setback's a setup for a comeback, and you're building your story. And one day you're going to be able to tell an amazing story about how you got to where you were because of all those setbacks or things that made you that much stronger. So just
Mm-hmm.
remember, keep your head up, keep grinding. Life wasn't meant to be easy. Push forward.
Dang, that's great stuff. Also, too, for our listeners, Chris, how can they reach out to you after this episode?
Yeah, check me out on Instagram, the Traveling Tennis Coach. I've just started maybe my Instagram a couple, like 6 weeks ago. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really building the platform, but I'm talking a lot about not only just what's going on in the sport, but I'm talking about um, giving informational videos on just
Mm-hmm.
some small things to help your game get better with tennis. So check me out.
Yeah, check Chris Clark out on Instagram. We'll put again in the credits his info.
Slide in the DM,
Yes,
Kelly.
slide in the DMs. If you have any questions for me about the daily grind, feel free to check our website. I'll put it on there as well. My Twitter, Insta is at Kelly J Lefty. But yeah, if you guys are looking to learn more about tennis, instructing, teaching, etc., in the Chicago area or anywhere in general, hit up Chris. So I definitely
Absolutely.
I can put in a recommendation for sure. I've learned a lot from him on court and off court. So that's it for
Excellent.
our episode for today. So thanks for tuning in to the Daily Grind. Until next time, my name is Kelly, and have a good one.
See you guys.